Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to the Dabs of Reality show. I'm your host, Tom CRAWSHAW, and today I want to dive into this topic of how to breathe properly. Now you might be asking yourself, is it even possible to breathe properly? This is something we do unconsciously all of the time, every single day. Now, is there really a way to breathe properly? Am I doing it wrong? Well, I'm going to dive into this fascinating topic in more depth in this video. And I'm also going to tell you what is the correct way to breathe, and I'm going to give you some exercises to try at home to help develop this in yourself. Now listen, if you're new here to the channel and you've not hit that subscribe button yet, please hit the red button below. Massively appreciate that. And we're going to be putting out more videos like this. So we're talking about science, spirituality, psychedelics and biohacking and a whole bunch more. So a few years ago I read this book called The Oxygen Advantage. It was written by a guy called Patrick McKeown. And Patrick is arguably one of the leading experts in the world on how to breathe properly. And he goes so far as to say that if you're not breathing properly, if you're an adult or a child, then you're never going to be able to reach your full potential and perform at your highest level. So what does Patrick think is the correct way to breathe? Well, breathing through your nose. Yeah, so he says that mouth breathing is the wrong way to breathe. Now I'm going to get into all the science of why nose breathing is so important and all the benefits that you'll receive if you make that switch. So here's the thing, if you breathe through your mouth, you're then highly likely to become an over breather. And what does over breathing mean? Well, it essentially means that you're expelling more CO2 than if you were breathing through your nose. And the implications of that, well, we're going to get into that in just a moment. And listen, a recent study showed that over 67% of people surveyed had poor breathing patterns. And if you're over 40, you're actually 6 times more likely to be a mouth breather. So why is this such a bad thing? Well, you lose more moisture when you breathe through your mouth. So you can end up drying out your mouth and your throat. Not a good thing. It can lead to sleep apnea. It can lead to asthma. In fact, we can actually correct sleep apnea and asthma by literally taping up your mouth when you go to sleep. And this will force you and your body to breathe through your nose. Now, when we have sleep apnea, for example, or if you're just a snorer, right? You know, if someone's laying on their back, they're breathing through their mouth when they're sleeping, chances are they're going to be snoring pretty loud. Chances are they're going to be waking up periodically throughout the night. What happens when we wake up periodically through the night is we get poor sleep. And I recently did a video on the benefits of sleep and what happens if we get poor sleep. I'm going to link that in the description as well. But here's the thing, you can double your risk of all-cause mortality by simply not getting enough sleep. So if your sleep is fragmented due to sleep apnea or to snoring or breathing through your mouth, then that's going to have a massive impact on your health and longevity. Another thing to consider, another one of the disadvantages of breathing through your mouth, especially as a child, as a developing child, is the craniofacial muscles and this whole part of the face doesn't develop properly. So if the child is breathing through their nose all the time, these muscles and these bones up here, they don't get used, they don't get exercised. And that could lead to, you know, like things like sleep apnea and asthma and other conditions. So this can be quite problematic if you've been a mouth breather as a child and your face hasn't had the stimulation through exercising the muscles in your nose and in your airways when you breathe through your nose. So if you think about it, when we breathe through our mouths, we're typically breathing shallow breaths, usually a little bit quicker, and it's the top of our chest, right? So can you think of a situation when we do this? It's usually when we're running, right? So these are the hallmarks of the fight or flight response. Short breathing, shallow breaths. And what happens when we're in the fight or flight response, we have this stress response. We're in the sympathetic nervous system. So it's not going to be a pretty relaxing place to be. As opposed to when we breathe through our nose, we take longer breaths, there is more resistance to the air coming into the nose, and it triggers the parasympathetic nervous system. So I'm going to give you a cool little exercise at the end of this video that will help you drop into the parasympathetic, and it'll also increase your CO2 tolerance so you can breathe through your mouth for longer during exercise, which is also super important. And one of the other major disadvantages, which I'm going to get into the science in just a moment, is reduced oxygenation in the body. So typically when we're exercising, we're panting through our mouths. That's actually reducing the oxygenation and reducing the efficiency of the oxygen in our body. So how do we increase this? How do we improve this? What's going on in the body from a science perspective to cause this to happen? So CO2 is the real important ingredient here. CO2 is especially important because it signals to the body to breathe. So when we hold our breath, the CO2 starts to build up in our bodies. Once the CO2 reaches a certain threshold, there is detectors in the brain that will signal to the body that it needs to take a breath. So this is what we feel as air hunger, or the urge to breathe. I've been very familiar with this doing a bunch of free diving. And I also did a video on free diving, how it works, how you hold your breath underwater in another video. I'm going to link that in the description and also on the screen right now. So CO2 plays a massive role. When we breathe through our mouth, we breathe out more CO2 than we would if we were breathing through our nose. So this reduces the CO2 concentration in the blood. Now CO2 is extremely useful because the oxygen that binds to the red blood cells, that bond between them, we need the CO2 to weaken that bond. When we reduce concentrations of CO2 in the body, that bond gets stronger, therefore the oxygen cannot separate and cannot get delivered to the areas of the body that require it. So can you see now how breathing through your nose actually helps increase the oxygenation in your blood? Because it keeps the CO2 levels right where they need to be, and it also may even increase them so that that bond becomes weaker and weaker and your oxygenation actually gets stronger. Now CO2 is also an extremely important vasodilator, so it dilates the blood vessels, giving us more surface area for the oxygen to be absorbed. Now, for example, if you have to start nose breathing during exercise, you'll find the air hunger will increase quite rapidly and you'll come to a point where you literally have to breathe through your mouth. But the thing is, your CO2 tolerance is probably pretty low. So imagine if you were to train your CO2 tolerance, you'd be able to work out harder for longer while breathing through your nose and while improving your oxygen efficiency. Now, this is what top athletes do during their training, because if you can gain an advantage by having a higher CO2 tolerance and being able to absorb more oxygen through nasal breathing, you're going to have an advantage over other people who are just panting in and out of their mouth, exhaling too much CO2, constricting the blood vessels, strengthening the bond from oxygen to the red blood cells and reducing the efficiency of oxygen in the body. So CO2 is also the reason why people with sleep apnea hold their breath at night, because they're breathing in and out through their mouth, the CO2 concentration drops, and because there's not much CO2 in the body, the brain's like, oh, okay, we don't need to breathe. Because remember, the CO2 is the signal for the body to breathe. Once that drops so low, the body's like, I'm not going to breathe now. So this can be quite dangerous. People with sleep apnea sometimes hold their breath for 60 seconds, 90 seconds, sometimes maybe even 2 minutes. So can you imagine what that might do to your health over the long term if you're holding your breath every couple of minutes for like 30 seconds? You're going to wake up feeling groggy, feeling tired, not feeling very energized, and the simple reason is your body's not been able to fully recover, you've not had enough oxygen coming through, and your brain isn't being able to fully repair and restore and replenish those neurotransmitters that are so important to our day-to-day functioning and that only get replenished when we go to sleep. So what is the right way to breathe? Now, hopefully you've come to the conclusion that nose breathing is the correct way to breathe. So you can expect benefits like improved aerobic capacity, less fatigue, less lactic acid, better sleep, improved endurance, and a few other benefits as well. Now obviously I don't have time to go into everything in the book, so I highly recommend you check out The Oxygen Advantage. I'm going to leave a link below in the description as well. I'm also going to leave a link to Audible free trial, so if you want to actually get the audiobook, you can grab the link and get yourself a free credit if you sign up to Audible today. Alright guys, so I promised you an exercise. It's pretty simple. You can try this when you're walking around, maybe you're going to work, maybe you're going to grab the train or the bus or whatever. So like me right now, I'm just walking along in the park, and what you can do is you can start to breathe in and out through your nose. Now hopefully when you're at rest, and also when you're doing low activity stuff like walking for example, you can start to play around with this. So we take 3 seconds on the inhale and we do 4 seconds on the exhale. You can even play around with the ratios. Basically what we're doing here is a longer exhale. And then we're going to add in a breath hold for 3 paces. So we're going to breathe in, we're going to hold the breath for 3 paces, we're going to breathe out slowly, and we're going to hold the breath for 3 paces. And pretty soon you're going to start to feel the air hunger. You're going to start to feel maybe some tension in your diaphragm, maybe some spasms here and there. So this exercise is really cool on a number of different levels. First of all, we're activating our parasympathetic nervous system by having that longer exhale. Second, we have some biomechanical actions happening here. So when we breathe in through our nose and breathe out through our nose, we're filling up the whole entire lung. We're using our diaphragm more. So this includes the lateral expansion of the diaphragm and the lower ribs. Okay, this is something that doesn't happen when we're mouth breathing and we're breathing really shallow through the top of our chest. So we actually fill up the whole entire lungs and we're exercising those lower ribs. The other really cool thing is we've got the biochemistry going on. So as we're breathing in through the nose adds nitric oxide, adds moisture and heat to the air, which makes it a lot easier to absorb in the lungs. And obviously, like I spoke about before, we also have the CO2 levels, which will start to rise as you feel more air hunger. So this is a really simple exercise you can do every day when you're walking around. Do it for 10 minutes and see how far you can push yourself. Now, if you're not really experienced with this and you don't have a strong breath hold, it's going to be extremely unlikely that you're going to pass out due to hypoxia, right? Chances are you're probably just going to breathe, right? Your head's not underwater and you're going to be fine. So there's no real safety concerns with this particular exercise. You can just take a breath and recover yourself back to normal. One of the other really cool things about doing these mini breath holds is that the blood flow to the brain actually increases. Your carotid artery expands, obviously due to the increase in CO2, and you get a higher blood flow to the brain. So listen, I highly recommend you go and try that exercise for yourself. You can also do the same exercise while you're at rest, but obviously the air hunger won't be as strong, so you may need to like count a few seconds, maybe do like 10, 20 seconds for the breath hold and increase it every time. So maybe you take a 2-second inhale, hold for 30 seconds, a 3-second exhale, hold for 30 seconds, or 10 seconds or 20 seconds or whatever works for you. So anyway guys, I'm going to wrap up this video. I hope this has been useful and kind of fascinating. You know, when I first came across this book, it confirmed everything that I learned when I was freediving and all the science behind how CO2 works in the body at increasing the oxygen efficiency and absorption. So like I said, Patrick McKeown, he has the book The Oxygen Advantage. I'm going to put a link to that book for Amazon and for Audible in the description below. If you want to check it out on Audible and help support the channel, what you can do is you can grab that link and get yourself a free account and get yourself 1 free credit to go and listen to the book today. And listen, are you a mouth breather? Are you breathing through your nose all the time? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to know if this is something you're conscious of or aware of or not. Anyway, thanks for tuning in guys. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace. Thank you so much for watching this video today. I know your time is extremely valuable, so if you've enjoyed today's content, please consider subscribing and clicking that notification bell so you get a notification next time I release another one of these videos. You can also leave me a comment below and let me know what part of this video resonated the most with you, or simply click that like button to let me know you enjoyed this content. And And if you want to get your hands on a free 12-minute guided meditation that I recorded to help you manifest your dreams and create whatever you want in your life, go ahead and click the link in the description for your free download. And if you want to check out all the latest blog posts on my blog, dabsofreality.com, the link is down there below as well, along with my Instagram and my Facebook page if you want to consider following me on those platforms. Until next time, catch you on the flip side.